A white woman gave birth to a black daughter, and her husband left her. Years later, in a hospital, in the midst of pain and uncertainty, a truth is revealed. A family destroyed by the unexpected. Emily struggles to raise Sarah alone, with the unexpected help of a supportive neighbor. Years later, Sarah embarks on a relentless search for her roots. A reunion that challenges forgiveness and redemption, ancient secrets, family ties, and a truth that could change everything. Emily and John were an apparently happy couple. They lived in a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. John worked as a sales manager at an appliance company, where his charismatic nature and communication skills made him a valuable employee. John was known for his problem-solving abilities and his empathy towards customers, qualities that also made him a considerate partner. Emily, on the other hand, was dedicated to being a kindergarten teacher, a vocation that perfectly matched her patience and affection for children. Their dream was to have a large family, full of love and happiness. After a few years of marriage, they finally received the news they had been waiting for. Emily was pregnant. The pregnancy was smooth, without complications. Emily was closely monitored by Dr. Richard, a trusted family doctor. During the checkups, John always accompanied Emily, asking questions and showing great interest in his wife's and baby's well-being. He was ecstatic about the baby's arrival, making plans and imagining what it would be like to be a father. They painted the baby's room together, chose the furniture, and bought clothes. Everything seemed perfect. On the big day, Emily went into labor and was rushed to the hospital. John was by her side, holding her hand and encouraging her with sweet words. After hours of effort and pain, the baby's cry finally echoed through the room. But instead of celebration, what followed was an unsettling silence. The baby girl was born with black skin, in contrast to her white parents. John, unable to comprehend what was happening, stepped back, feeling betrayed. "How is this possible, Emily?" he shouted, his voice full of disbelief and anger. Emily, still exhausted from childbirth, didn't know how to respond. She was as surprised as he was. The doctors tried to calm the situation, explaining that genetics could be unpredictable and that there might be African ancestry in John's or Emily's family. But John didn't want to listen. He was convinced he had been betrayed and, without looking back, left the hospital, abandoning Emily and the newborn daughter. Emily was devastated. She felt alone, betrayed, and scared about the future. How could she raise a child alone, especially with the weight of a genetic secret she herself didn't know? Little Sarah, the name she chose for her daughter, would be her only company and motivation. The days that followed were full of deep sadness and uncertainty. Emily faced judging looks and whispers in the streets. Some colleagues and old friends distanced themselves, unable to understand or accept the situation. Over time, Emily realized she couldn't let herself be defeated. Sarah needed her, and she was determined to be the best mother possible for her daughter. Little Sarah, with her big, curious eyes, was a ray of hope in Emily's life, who began to find strength where there was previously despair. In this new beginning, Emily found unexpected support in Mark, a kind neighbor who always offered help. Mark was a reserved man but with a big heart. He was a widower and had lost his wife a few years ago, living alone with the memory of his lost love. Mark approached the family and, over time, became a father figure for Sarah. He taught Emily how to handle the daily difficulties and helped Sarah feel loved and accepted. Mark and Emily shared many conversations at night, where he offered advice and emotional support. They discovered they had much in common, from a passion for gardening to a love for mystery books. Emily and John were an apparently happy couple. They lived in a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. John worked as a sales manager at an appliance company, where his charismatic nature and communication skills made him a valuable employee. John was known for his problem-solving abilities and his empathy towards customers, qualities that also made him a considerate partner. Emily, on the other hand, was dedicated to being a kindergarten teacher, a vocation that perfectly matched her patience and affection for children. Their dream was to have a large family, full of love and happiness. After a few years of marriage, they finally received the news they had been waiting for. Emily was pregnant. The pregnancy was smooth, without complications. Emily was closely monitored by Dr. Richard, a trusted family doctor. During the checkups, John always accompanied Emily, asking questions and showing great interest in his wife's and baby's well-being. He was ecstatic about the baby's arrival, making plans and imagining what it would be like to be a father. They painted the baby's room together, chose the furniture, and bought clothes. Everything seemed perfect. On the big day, Emily went into labor and was rushed to the hospital. John was by her side, holding her hand and encouraging her with sweet words. After hours of effort and pain, the baby's cry finally echoed through the room. But instead of celebration, what followed was an unsettling silence. The baby girl was born with black skin, in contrast to her white parents. John, unable to comprehend what was happening, stepped back, feeling betrayed. "How is this possible, Emily?" he shouted, his voice full of disbelief and anger. Emily, still exhausted from childbirth, didn't know how to respond. She was as surprised as he was. The doctors tried to calm the situation, explaining that genetics could be unpredictable and that there might be African ancestry in John's or Emily's family. But John didn't want to listen. He was convinced he had been betrayed and, without looking back, left the hospital, abandoning Emily and the newborn daughter. Emily was devastated. She felt alone, betrayed, and scared about the future. How could she raise a child alone, especially with the weight of a genetic secret she herself didn't know? Little Sarah, the name she chose for her daughter, would be her only company and motivation. The days that followed were full of deep sadness and uncertainty. Emily faced judging looks and whispers in the streets. Some colleagues and old friends distanced themselves, unable to understand or accept the situation. Over time, Emily realized she couldn't let herself be defeated. Sarah needed her, and she was determined to be the best mother possible for her daughter. Little Sarah, with her big, curious eyes, was a ray of hope in Emily's life, who began to find strength where there was previously despair. In this new beginning, Emily found unexpected support in Mark, a kind neighbor who always offered help. Mark was a reserved man but with a big heart. He was a widower and had lost his wife a few years ago, living alone with the memory of his lost love. Mark approached the family and, over time, became a father figure for Sarah. He taught Emily how to handle the daily difficulties and helped Sarah feel loved and accepted. Mark and Emily shared many conversations at night, where he offered advice and emotional support. They discovered they had much in common, from a passion for gardening to a love for mystery books. With her acceptance into medical school, Sarah embarked on a new journey. The demanding routine of studies, internships, and research brought a new set of challenges. However, her determination and passion for medicine propelled her forward. Emily and Mark were increasingly proud of the young woman Sarah was becoming. In the university environment, Sarah stood out not only for her intelligence but also for her empathy and dedication to patients during internships. Her life story, marked by overcoming obstacles, inspired colleagues and professors. One day, during a class on genetics, Sarah found herself confronted with deep questions about her own origin. The debates about genetic inheritance and ancestry made her reflect more intensely on the possibility of finding her biological father. After class, she talked with her professor, Dr. Helen, who advised her to explore her roots as a way to better understand herself. Sarah felt motivated to seek answers that could finally fill the gaps in her identity. Emily, noticing Sarah's restlessness, decided to have an open conversation with her daughter about John. She revealed the details of Sarah's birth and the impact it had on her relationship with John. It was a difficult conversation, full of emotions. Sarah, although saddened by the story, felt relieved to finally understand the circumstances of her father's abandonment. She decided she needed to find John, not just for answers but to close a painful chapter in her life. Determined to seek answers, Sarah began searching for John. She used social media, public records, and even hired a private investigator. After a few months of searching, she managed to find a lead. John worked at an export company in a nearby city. With a pounding heart and many doubts in her mind, Sarah decided it was time to confront her past. When she found John, Sarah was met with surprise. John, now older and with a face marked by time, couldn't hide the shock of seeing his daughter. Initially, the conversation was tense and full of resentment. John tried to justify himself, but Sarah didn't want excuses. She wanted answers. She wanted to understand why he had left and left a deep scar in her life. John confessed that, at the time of Sarah's birth, he had been consumed by a mix of anger and insecurity. He couldn't handle the idea that the daughter might not be his, and social and family pressure led him to the hasty decision to abandon the family. He never had the courage to look for Emily and Sarah, fearing what he might find. John revealed that, over the years, he often thought of Sarah and regretted his decision, but shame and fear prevented him from taking any action. Sarah, with tears in her eyes, explained to John how much his absence had hurt, but also shared the achievements and happiness she found alongside Emily and Mark. She wasn't there just to confront him, but also to understand and possibly forgive. John, emotional, asked for the chance to get to know his daughter better and, if possible, rebuild a relationship with her. Sarah, although cautious, agreed to give it a chance. She knew the path to forgiveness and reconciliation wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to try. Upon returning home, Sarah told Emily and Mark about the meeting with John. Emily was apprehensive but decided to support Sarah in her search for answers and reconciliation. Mark, always understanding, offered his unconditional support, emphasizing the importance of Sarah following her heart. They knew this journey would be complex and full of emotional challenges, but they also knew it was necessary for Sarah's growth and peace. In the following months, Sarah and John began meeting regularly. The conversations were initially uncomfortable, but gradually, they found common ground. John showed genuine interest in Sarah's life and achievements. Sarah, in turn, began discovering new facets of the man who once abandoned her. She started to see John not just as the father who left, but as a person with his own flaws and regrets. Meanwhile, Emily and Mark continued to be fundamental pillars in Sarah's life. Sarah's journey of self-discovery and forgiveness brought new challenges, but also strengthened family bonds. Emily, seeing her daughter's determination to face the past, felt a mix of pride and relief. She knew Sarah was treading a difficult but necessary path. Over time, John's presence became less a source of pain and more an opportunity for healing and understanding. The meetings between Sarah and John became more frequent, and over time, the bond between father and daughter began to strengthen. John made an effort to get to know the young woman Sarah had become, feeling deeply regretful for missing so many important moments in her life. He started attending important events in Sarah's life, such as presentations and conferences at the university, trying to make up for lost time. Sarah, for her part, saw in John a chance to close an old wound and move forward with more lightness. However, a major test for this new family dynamic was about to happen. One early morning, Sarah was awakened by an emergency call from the hospital. A critically ill patient needed a complex surgery, and as one of the best students in the medical course, Sarah was called to help the medical team. Upon arriving at the hospital, Sarah was informed that the patient was a middle-aged man who had been in a serious car accident. When she finally saw the patient's face, she felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. It was John, her biological father. He was unconscious, with multiple fractures, and urgently needed surgery to save his life. Sarah found herself in a devastating dilemma. Although trained to handle high-pressure situations, the fact that the patient was her biological father added an immense layer of emotional complexity. She knew she needed to act quickly, but also knew her judgment could be affected by their personal relationship. Dr. Helen, her professor and mentor, noticed Sarah's agitation and took her to a private room. There, Sarah opened up, explaining the whole situation. Dr. Helen, with her experience and wisdom, advised Sarah to step away from the direct surgery so she could make objective and precise clinical decisions. She assured Sarah that the medical team would be composed of highly qualified professionals to care for John. Sarah agreed but decided to stay in the observation room, following every step of the procedure. The tension was palpable. Sarah felt a lump in her throat as she watched the doctors work to save her father's life. Every minute felt like an eternity. Finally, after hours of surgery, Dr. Helen emerged from the operating room with a tired but hopeful expression. She informed Sarah that the surgery had been successful, but that John still needed a long recovery period. Sarah felt a wave of relief mixed with emotional exhaustion. She knew the battle was far from over, but at least there was a chance. During John's recovery, Sarah balanced her studies, internships, and hospital visits. Emily and Mark also frequently visited to support Sarah and show solidarity with John. These visits began to ease old tensions and open the way for new understanding among everyone. Over time, John regained consciousness and started showing signs of improvement. Emotional, he thanked Sarah for being by his side during the surgery, even indirectly. He knew that without her support, things could have been very different. The hospital experience brought a new perspective to everyone. John realized how much he had lost by distancing himself from Sarah and Emily. He decided to do everything in his power to regain the trust and love he had abandoned years ago. For Sarah, the experience was transformative. She understood the importance of forgiveness and unconditional love. She realized that despite the past hurts, it was possible to rebuild relationships and find strength in moments of vulnerability. Emily, seeing Sarah's dedication and John's genuine regret, began reconsidering her own emotions. She knew the path to reconciliation wouldn't be easy, but she was willing to try for Sarah's sake and her own peace of mind. Mark, always a pillar of support, encouraged everyone to move forward with open hearts. He knew that the scars of the past could be healed with time, love, and understanding. The family, now more united than ever, began to rebuild their story one step at a time. With John's recovery progressing, the atmosphere at home began to change. John started visiting Emily and Mark's house, and these visits, initially formal and tense, gradually became more natural and warm. Sarah was happy to see her biological parents beginning to understand each other, and Mark, always present, remained the anchor of balance for everyone. The new family dynamic brought hope and renewal, but also new questions about identity and heritage. One day, during one of these visits, John brought up a delicate subject. He had decided to investigate more about his own ancestry to better understand Sarah's genetics. John hired a DNA analysis service which could reveal details about his family tree. When the results arrived, he was shocked and, at the same time, relieved. With the report in hand, John called Emily, Mark, and Sarah for a serious conversation. He began explaining that the test results confirmed African ancestry in his genealogical line, thus explaining Sarah's appearance. John shared stories of his ancestors, discovering that his maternal great-grandmother was a black woman who had married a white European. The story had been forgotten or deliberately omitted over generations. Sarah felt a wave of emotions as John spoke. There was relief in finally understanding her roots, but also a weight in knowing that an important part of her identity had been ignored by the family. Emily, on the other hand, felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief because the truth had finally emerged, and sadness for all the years of pain and separation that could have been avoided. Mark, always the voice of reason, suggested that this revelation be seen as an opportunity for everyone to learn and grow. He emphasized the importance of accepting and celebrating all parts of Sarah's identity. John agreed, promising to do everything to make up for lost time and build a solid relationship with his daughter and Emily. To mark this new beginning, the family decided to organize a small celebration. They invited close friends and family, sharing the story of their discoveries and the importance of acceptance and unconditional love. It was a night full of emotions, laughter, and tears, but mostly a sense of renewal and hope. During the celebration, Sarah approached Mark and thanked him for always being by her side and for being the father figure she needed. Mark, with tears in his eyes, hugged her and said she would always be his daughter, no matter what. Emily, watching the scene, felt deep gratitude for having such a wonderful man by her side. After the party, life began to take a new direction. John became a constant presence in Sarah's life, participating in her important moments and supporting her in her medical journey. Sarah, in turn, dedicated herself even more to her studies, motivated not only by the desire to become an exemplary doctor, but also by the will to honor her history and roots. Emily and John, over time, managed to rebuild a friendship. They understood that the past couldn't be changed, but the future was in their hands. They decided to focus on the present and Sarah's well-being, leaving behind old grudges. Mark continued to be the pillar of strength and love. He and Emily deepened their relationship even more, strengthened by overcoming challenges. Sarah saw in Mark an example of how true love can heal deep wounds and bring peace. Sarah's journey was not just about becoming a doctor, but also about discovering who she really was and finding strength in her roots. The revelation about her ancestry gave her a new purpose and a new outlook on life and medicine. She was determined to use her skills to help others find healing and understanding. From that point on, the family continued to grow and strengthen. They learned to celebrate their differences and value every moment together. The discovery of Sarah's roots brought a new sense of identity and belonging, allowing her to connect more deeply with her heritage and history. The journey of self-discovery and transformation was not easy, but it was essential for everyone's growth and happiness. Time passed, and Sarah was about to graduate from medical school with honors. The unconditional support of her family, now more united than ever, was crucial to her journey. The relationship between Emily, John, and Mark consolidated, marked by acceptance and mutual understanding. They formed a family nucleus that, despite the difficulties and tumultuous past, was now an example of resilience and love. Sarah began her internship at a renowned hospital, gaining more and more respect and admiration from her colleagues and superiors. Her technical skills and empathy towards patients made her stand out. But there was a part of her story that she hadn't told many: the complexity of her origin and the reunion with her biological father. This secret was an intimate part of her journey, something that shaped her deeply, but that she shared only with those closest to her. One busy morning at the hospital, Sarah was called to attend an emergency. An elderly man had suffered a heart attack and needed immediate care. Upon reaching the patient's bed, Sarah recognized the man. It was her paternal grandfather, John's father, whom Sarah had only known through old photos. She felt a mix of shock and concern but remained calm and professional. The surgery was successful, and the elderly man was taken to recovery. When John arrived at the hospital, informed of the emergency, he found Sarah in the corridor. Learning what had happened, John was deeply moved and grateful that his father's life had been saved by the granddaughter he barely knew. This experience brought a new layer of reconciliation and understanding to the family. Sarah's grandfather, upon waking and learning who had saved his life, asked to get to know his granddaughter better. During the hospital visits, they shared stories and built a relationship they had never imagined possible. Sarah saw her family expand in ways she had never anticipated. Emily, John, and Mark were by her side, proud and emotional with Sarah's progress and achievements. The acceptance and love that permeated their interactions were now palpable. At Sarah's graduation, the celebration was grand. Everyone was there: Emily, John, Mark, Sarah's grandfather, and many friends and colleagues who had been part of her journey. Sarah's speech at the ceremony was profound and inspiring. She spoke about resilience, the importance of understanding and accepting our roots, and the transformative power of love and forgiveness. Sarah emphasized that her journey wouldn't have been possible without her mother's unconditional support, Mark's wisdom and love, and her biological father's reconciliation. She highlighted that each of them, with their flaws and virtues, contributed to who she was at that moment. After graduation, Sarah started working at the same hospital where she had done her internship. The experience of saving her grandfather's life motivated her even more to pursue a career in cardiology, a specialty that combined her passion for saving lives with the personal connection she felt. Emily and Mark, now married, continued to support Sarah in all her decisions. John, on the other hand, became a present and dedicated father, trying to make up for the lost years with love and attention. The relationship between everyone was marked by moments of reflection and gratitude for the path they had traveled. Sarah, now a respected and successful doctor, decided to use her position to help other families find healing and reconciliation. She founded a support project for families facing challenges similar to those she had overcome, offering emotional and medical support. Her goal was to ensure that no one faced the same kind of loneliness and despair she and her mother had felt years ago. Sarah's story, from abandonment and pain to reconciliation and success, became an example for many. She proved that with love, understanding, and determination, it is possible to overcome any adversity. Sarah's journey showed that the past could be painful, but it could also be a source of strength and transformation. And so life went on. Sarah's family, now stronger and more united, continued to face challenges together, knowing that, regardless of what the future held, love and resilience would keep them strong.